So it's been a while since I've talked about the Dragon Ball Super manga, and I kind of wanted to just dive into a couple of things that I've seen, not going too in depth to be honest with you, because yeah, there's been definitely some changes, but I've definitely noticed something major that the Dragon Ball Super manga has been doing recently, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure exactly how I feel about it, because on one hand, I feel as though it's a good thing in a sense, but then at the same time, I feel like, I don't know, maybe it might not be the best. And what I'm referring to is I've definitely noticed in recent months, the Dragon Ball Super manga has really been speeding through the Tournament of Power, where in the anime we had episodes upon episodes dedicated to certain fights or certain characters, or at the very least we would have a full episode, you know, just dedicated to, okay, we got to take down this big person. In the manga, they've definitely reduced it to, like, you know, for example, Kale, when she goes raging, she's just knocking people out left and right. There ain't no competition, and I've definitely noticed that in the Dragon Ball Super manga, they're really just trying to speed it up. So it's kind of making me question a couple things. For starters, is Toyotaro being told, like, yo, wrap it up? Because at the end of the day, let's be honest here, the Tournament of Power and Dragon Ball Super as a whole ended, like, what, back in March? We're now in August, you know, heading towards September. That was quite some time ago, and of course, yeah, the manga has been behind for a while now. I mean, it started off, it was ahead of the anime, but then eventually it got behind the anime because, you know, whatever they decided to do in the Toei studios and whatnot to kick things up a notch. But right now, where we're at, if I'm not mistaken, the latest chapter is Kale and Kefla have fused to become Kefla, and it was left off on a little bit of a cliffhanger. But before that, Kale was on a rampage, which she did do in the anime, you know, she was going wild or whatever, but opposed to the anime, in the manga, she's just knocking people out left and right. Again, in the anime, there was just so many different instances where characters would have just straight up a good chunk of time dedicated to their fights. And I've noticed that in the manga, it's kind of knocking them off left and right, not really giving too much thought to it. And to be honest with you, some of it I can agree with, because there were definitely some instances in the anime where I was like, yo, this character's so corny. Why are we spending all of this time with this character? Because it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, some of these villains or opponents, whatever you want to call them, were just not all that interesting. So yeah, in the manga, if you have a chance to tackle that content again, definitely get rid of some of the people that were just not interesting, not exciting, or we just didn't really care for. And I think that that's a good thing that the manga is doing. But then at the same time, the pacing definitely, it feels as though it started off nice and smooth, and as it progressed, it's gotten to the point where it's just like speeding through things that, again, the anime gave us a decent amount of time to really digest and get a little bit intricate with as far as these fights go. So it's a give and a take. It's like, yeah, get rid of some of the boring stuff, but then at the same time, don't just go through everything ridiculously fast. So that's kind of where I stand as far as, you know, the speeding process that they're doing with the manga. Because again, don't get me wrong, I don't want slow-paced things, and I feel as though the anime did stretch out a lot of things, which kind of, towards the end of its run, it made that some of the stuff, which I don't know if there was an order count of how many episodes that they had or whatever, but towards the end, it was like there was stuff that probably I felt should have been a little bit more in depth, and fights that should have been a little bit longer. And I'm like, well, if we didn't waste all this time with, you know, these fights earlier on, we would have had more time to really explore these fights and have a little bit more depth to them. Not that the fights in the end were bad, because a lot of those fights were really freaking awesome, you know, Jiren, Topo, all of that stuff was really dope, but it just felt as though, like, it didn't leave that much room for these fights to have just some long-lasting effects, especially when you come from, for like me, I like when the big baddies have a decent amount of, you know, length in their episodes or what's going on. And, you know, again, in the anime, it was just like, yeah, you know, the fight against Jiren, I mean, there was multiple fights against Jiren, but the last one, it was like, it was awesome and everything, but I wouldn't have minded an extra episode or two. So that's kind of where I stand, again, comparing the two of them. But one of the big things that I think is really, really awesome, and it's unfortunate that we don't get enough of this, and I said it throughout the Dragon Ball Super Tournament of Power arc in the anime, and, you know, the manga, again, is that Gohan, and even in the movie, but we'll talk about that in another video, Gohan never really gets that spotlight. I think earlier on is interesting how the anime and the manga has swapped things out. Earlier on in the anime of the Tournament of Power, Gohan was pretty freaking awesome. He started off, they really gave him a lot of pivotal roles and really showcased his development, and then slowly but surely towards the end of the tournament, it was like, it wasn't all that, and Gohan kind of fizzled out in a way. It was like really, really hype, and then Oh yeah, Gohan, yeah, he was here. You know what I'm saying? So Gohan, definitely, I felt as though if they would have continued the consistency of what they started off in the anime in the beginning of the arc, towards the end of the arc with Gohan, it would have been just all around like awesomeness. But he kind of fizzled out towards the end and wasn't as hype as when everything started off for Gohan. Now with the manga, I think it's been the opposite. I think they're having the opposite effect where Gohan started off, and honestly, I wasn't really wowed by a lot of the things that Gohan was doing in the Tournament of Power in the manga early on. I was just kind of like, whatever. Maybe you could attribute it to some of the changes. Maybe you could attribute it to the fact that I felt as though Gohan had a great impact in the anime and the manga didn't live up to that. But now where we're headed, that's where I'm starting to be like, okay, you know, Toyotaro's giving Gohan his moment, and honestly, the way things are looking, once again, the manga is making things feel a lot more sensible and making a lot more just overall logic out of certain aspects. Now, there was some illogical things still, don't get me wrong. Like when I'm seeing, you know, Kale is knocking this one out, giving this one a run for his money, giving Goku, I'm just like, what's going on, you know what I'm saying? But I always felt as though, regardless of what, that Kefla, when Kale and Kefla fused or whatever, I always thought Kefla still, like, don't get me wrong, Goku was tired, but there were certain instances in the anime that I was just like, this just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. I felt as though they made a big mistake early on in Dragon Ball Super, where they just showcased the vast difference between even Super Saiyan 3 in comparison to the God modes and God Ki in general. It was too vast of anything. So when you introduce new Saiyans that don't have God Ki and don't have God transformations, to me, I always just feel like no matter what, they shouldn't be able to touch the main cast that do have, you know, these God powers like Goku, Super Saiyan Blue, and Vegeta and all that stuff, because it just felt like there should be no comparison. They shouldn't even be on the level. Now, it seems as though, based on the anime, manga, and the upcoming movie, that the reason why these people, especially Kale in particular, it kind of makes a little more sense, is that this legendary form that she has kind of breaks the rules a little bit. And if they explore it a little more to make it like, okay, this legendary form is even that above God transformations, it's a special type of key, something, you know, very simple like that, could make a lot more explanation. But it seems as though whenever it comes to this legendary form, it just surpasses, and it's nothing like the ordinary transformations, the normal Super Saiyan 1, 2, and 3. It just seems like it's out of this world. But nevertheless, I still felt like, you know, when Kefla or Kale and Kefla, all of that stuff versus Goku, granted, you could argue Goku was tired for certain points, but then once Goku was a little bit back to normal, it still felt like, and even being tired, a tired God should not be getting, you know, any type of work done on him versus a normal Super Saiyan, or even a Super Saiyan 2, even a Super Saiyan 3. But the manga is taking liberties and changing certain aspects, because now it seems as though, opposed to what the anime did where it was Goku versus Kefla, they're changing it up, and now Gohan is having a shining moment fighting Kefla, which Gohan at his peak, and obviously the power levels are kind of all over the place. It's really hard to establish power levels with Dragon Ball, because they, you know, there's just a lot of inconsistencies within, like, okay, how strong is this person? Should they match up or whatever? But I would definitely argue that Ultimate Gohan, if not the strongest, he was damn near one of the strongest at the end of Z, right? And at that point, which again, you could argue that just because they're Super Saiyan doesn't mean that they were around the same type of Super Saiyan power from this part of the story or whatever. But Gohan's ultimate form at the end really put him at a limit that was above Super Saiyan 2, you would argue Super Saiyan 3, I feel definitely it was over Super Saiyan 3, he was like the epitome of it. So you fuse two Super Saiyans, even if they're Super Saiyan 2 or whatever, I still think that that would be a great fight for Gohan, and it makes just so much more sense opposed to having these godlike creatures like Goku and Vegeta fighting these normal Super Saiyans. Again, there's the legendary thing there, but whatever, like, I feel as though Gohan having this moment just is so much better. One, it gives Gohan that respect, even, like, hopefully he takes the win, because right now at the last chapter, it ended off with they're about to go at it, Gohan jumped in and said, I'll handle Kefla or whatever, but it just feels so much more, not realistic, because obviously this is all crazy stuff or whatever, but in terms of the story and the power levels and power scaling, I feel as though Gohan being at that level makes a little bit more sense. Now, again, there's a little bit of inconsistencies just because Kale and Kefla, even before this, they were already showcasing like, yo, Golden Frieza was nothing compared to Kale. She was smacking him around and stuff. So there's still a couple of inconsistencies, but overall, I'd rather Gohan have that fight against Kefla than any of the God form people or anybody of that stature, because they just seem like they're on another planet of power. So I'm really, really excited about this. I think this is a great move. Hopefully Toyotaro does Gohan some justice and gives him a big hoorah in the manga. I mean, towards the end of the Tournament of Power in the anime, Gohan didn't have that. Towards the beginning, he did. So it's definitely they swapping it out with the anime and manga. Gohan starts off awesome in the anime, kind of fizzles out. Gohan starts off meh in the manga, and now he's getting hyped. So really, really exciting stuff. Kind of curious what you guys think, though. Do you feel as though Gohan versus Kefla makes more sense power scaling wise and overall is a better move than the Goku versus Kefla fight, or you want to see things different? And also, how do you feel about the pacing of the Dragon Ball Super manga? Honestly, I feel as though it's blazing through things. Again, some of it is good, skipping certain aspects that just was like, why are we wasting time here? Some of it is like, I don't really know. And your overall thoughts and expectations. Dragon Ball Super manga still going. I'm kind of curious how much longer we have with it. I mean, we're getting closer and closer towards the end where we're going to have the big Jiren fight. So maybe 4 or 5 more months. I don't know. That's a lot, to be honest with you. But maybe they're leading it towards once the, new Broly film comes out, they'll do a manga adaptation. And Toyotaro's going to try and jump on that as quick as possible. But we got to wait and see. Your overall expectations. But that is all I have for this one. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and check all my other social medias out. Make sure to hit the bell to get all notifications. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day. And remember the golden rule: anime and manga for life, boy. Bow. Have an awesome day. We make a major move, laugh and let the haters lose. We don't give a fuck, virginity intact, cream stack. Paper rules, if you heard it, best believe that. But now it's whatever, one day I'll be a favorite, but never. No matter how you move.